I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rafe Mair, Canada's former longest-running radio talk show host, former BC cabinet minister, and, of course, the #1 political commentator in Lions Bay, BC. Welcome to the show, Rafe.
Thank you very much, Jim. Always a pleasure.
I see there's new chat about building a bridge, perhaps, from the lower mainland to Vancouver Island. Now, Pat McGeer put that forward in the late 70s, said it would cost $1 billion and was doable. The government has given us all kinds of excuses for not doing it, but now they're talking about doing it again, perhaps from Lions Bay.
Oh, God forbid. How are they going to get around I suppose they're going to go right through Collingwood Channel, are they? Well, I remember I was in government when Pat brought that up, and it caused a lot of smoke and mirrors for a while. I was not I wasn't for it, frankly. I couldn't see why it had to be built. It's hugely expensive. It's not sort of like going to the Isle of Skye in Scotland, but I hadn't realized they were talking it up again. It was interesting, when Pat had it going, idea going. There were a lot of complaints from environmentalists about an island that it had to cross, which, of course, would have cut a swath through the island. And I remember flying over to Victoria with Pat one day, and he pointed out the window. He says, "Hey, that's that damn island they're all concerned about." He said, "I don't know why they're worried. It's owned by McMillan Bloedel." I said, "Pat, maybe they don't want the trees to all come down." Oh, he said, "I hadn't thought about that."
Well, yeah, you can't build anything in BC without taking out trees.
Well, that's true. Since I don't live in Victoria, I shouldn't be commenting, but if I live in Lions Bay, I'll tell you, that'll give us another thing to fight about, along with the LNG plant. I can't think of anybody that would like it. Where would it start?
When would they'd start building? I haven't heard anything about that.
It would have started in the Sea to Sky Highway, sort of roll off it, and right through Lions Bay. I mean, I can't see where they would do it.
Right, and where does it hit Vancouver Island? And where would it come to at Vancouver Island?
Exactly.
Although I've heard that there's kind of a tunnel halfway to Vancouver Island from the lower mainland from the mine that used to be there.
Oh, I guess there is. I guess there probably is. Well, I don't know. Thank God I won't be around when that happens, but I'm sure, I can tell you this right now, it will not get a favorable response in and around Lions Bay, that's for sure.
What's the state of the opposition to LNG in Lions Bay?
Well, it's very vigorous right now. It's very well organized too, Jim. The governments and the company don't seem to understand this. Although I think they're beginning to get the idea, because I'm told that Ms. McKenna's Facebook is just swamped, and that's not by design. That's just happening. But the My Sea to Sky group, which is really leading the fight. They have a couple of meetings. A meeting last week, a huge meeting, was attended by a lot of people, but they've got one coming up now, a seminar on what we used to call civil disobedience. They now call direct action. So it's serious, and we're getting serious, and we will be serious, and the governments better understand that this is not going to happen without a hell of a lot of trouble. People in this community are dead serious. And Jim, I always want to take the opportunity to make it clear, this isn't just a NIMBY thing. This is a huge problem. Not only the greenhouse gases, which incidentally were not even considered by the Environmental Committee that was supposed to look at this thing. Then there's the question of the stuff going into the ocean, and the herring runs and the salmon runs and so on. But there's the third one, the one that nobody has looked at yet from governments or anywhere else. That's the width of Howe Sound, which is way narrower than either the international standards or even the standards of the tanker companies themselves. So these are yet to come, and It's going to be a long fight, Jim, but we're going to fight and we're going to win.
I think one of the reasons why environmentalists and maybe the average person in BC is so adamant about protecting this is our waters off the coast used to be polluted. But I think a sign that they're back to health again is that we have humpback whales frolicking in English Bay, which is right in the heart of Vancouver.
Well, this, of course, is very evident here. The people all up and down Howe Sound, about 25 years ago, when the pulp mill in wood fiber went, and when the mine went, the Britannia mine went, all got involved on their own expense, along with the government doing it too, but on a cleanup campaign. And it has had extraordinary results, Jim. Now, these things take time to pay off, but they're paid off now, and you're right. Not just humpback whales. We have orca like you'd never believe. We've got seals and sea lions back. The herring runs are now back to where they used to be. The salmon runs are now back to where they used to be. And they want us to muck that all up. And you can imagine why the people that put all that time and effort into that are pretty upset, and they're not going to let that happen.
Well, it's not cheap to clean up, and it takes a lot of personal time, too, from people who've gone and
it really does, and of course, I think most people understand this, too. It takes a lot of emotional commitment. You really got to want to do something like this to actually do it. And then to have the satisfaction is, I wasn't part of that at that time. I didn't live here then, but to have the satisfaction as we all do, and I do particularly just looking out the window and seeing the orcas and the humpback and so on going up there, I mean, it's just something you can't imagine anybody would take away. Howe Sound, has always been a very special place. You've been there, most people I suppose have, but you think it's just around the corner from 2.5 million people, and you take a look at it. I mean, it's just beautiful. Who would want to destroy that under any circumstances? And to destroy it for something that's health-threatening, it just makes no sense whatsoever.
Do you fear the Trudeau government is going to push ahead with pipelines to both the East Coast and West Coast?
Well, it's interesting. I was just doing a note. I have a lot of fun sort of fiddling around with Facebook and Twitter when I get these things, and I just sent a note off to each of them because we just found that the federal officials are saying that the problems that they have with a pipeline that burst, I think that's the one in the United States, that where the whistleblower, nobody paid any attention to him. Matter of fact, they fired him. That those problems are the same problems that are going to happen up here too. And so I'm saying, Mr. Trudeau, I mean, are you going to make them promise, cross your heart, hope to die, that they'll be very, very careful this time and not be naughty? I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, I think most people understand this, Jim, that you put a pipeline in, you're putting in trouble. And you're going to put in trouble because, first of all, you can't be sure it's going to be built well. We know that from experience. Secondly, you can't be entirely sure it's going to be maintained well because it usually isn't. It's too costly to. All you have to do is look at the Kalamazoo situation a few years ago. So that the whole thing is a potential horror story. And if we still had to have fossil fuels going all the time, Jim, I guess we could all understand that. But here we are supposed to be weaning ourselves off fossil fuels. We signed the Paris Conference Agreement to do just that, and now we're building more and more pipelines to get the fossil fuels to places that can't put it up in the atmosphere fast enough. I'm sorry, but I just don't understand this. And I don't understand the great fuss about the LEAP manifesto. Manifesto's an awful word. Trust the NDP to come up with that one. But the idea is a good one. It's the kind of thing that we have to start doing, is making plans so that people who have jobs in the fossil fuel industry now are transferred into other jobs in the renewables and in other areas, so that the transition is as smooth as possible. Because, Jim, the transition is going to happen sooner or later. The question is when we do it and how we come to grips with it. So this whole thing, I guess I'm not being a very good guest today again because I just don't understand it. But it just completely baffles me. I feel like somebody just took my brain away. I mean, why would we do these things?
Well, India, which in a few years will surpass China with having the world's biggest population, has also made a pledge to go fossil fuel free, maybe in 20 or 30 years, but still they will be the biggest democracy and perhaps the world's biggest economy then.
Well, this is true, and it's got to happen everywhere. There's no jobs in a climate that can't sustain populations, can't sustain life, and you can't look at this thing as, well, we've got to save jobs. You can't save jobs in an industry that's going to destroy the very reason we have jobs. It just doesn't work. But I'll tell you, Jim, if you don't mind just a little bit off color here, I'll tell you what this is like, what these kind of people are thinking, the boo birds and so on. They're sort of like the little boy who's told, look, if you don't stop playing with yourself, you're going to go blind. And he says, oh, well, I'll just wait till I need glasses before I stop. And that's just what these people are like. Yes, they'll stop sometime, but only because it becomes absolutely necessary will they stop, not realizing, and of course, by that time, it'll be too late. And this whole thing is just overwhelming me. The people that say, well, we have no climate change problems, blah, 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 those people pop up in every imaginable circumstance. They're the same people that believe the earth is flat and that sort of thing, and you're bound to have them around. I'm more worried about the average intelligent British Columbian who's getting behind some political leaders and some union leaders, not all, who are saying, no, we have to put jobs first, blah, 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 blah. You have to try to keep the jobs, of course, as long as you can, but while you're doing that, you have to be making the transition. You have to be moving and doing the two things at once. And it's got to start very, very soon, Jim, or it's going to be too late.
Well, I'm sure the blacksmiths were very worried when they saw the first car roll down the street, too.
Well, this is the whole point, and I always remember a law case I read in law school, and it was somebody or other against the horse nail company. And I said to myself, well, there's a company that fell on sorry times. And, this happens. And back in the Industrial Revolution, in those days, governments had all the power in the world, so the workers that were disaffected could make no impact because the army come in, they all go to jail. But, what they did, the Luddites tried to destroy the machinery. You can understand that, but it doesn't work. It's going to happen. You have to make your adjustments. And the sooner you get started doing that, mentally as well as physically, the better off you're going to be and the better off society will be. And it's not something we have an option on, really. It's something that is simply going to happen whether we want it to or not. We can't stop it. So for goodness sake, let's do our best to take care of it. I mean, if we knew for absolute certain that within 25 or 30 years we're going to have a major earthquake, we do something about it. Well, maybe we wouldn't because we don't do very much as it is. But, those are the kind of things that you have to look at as being the similar situations. If you knew there was going to be an enormous storm going to come in, would you just carry on as if nothing's going to happen, or would you take precautions? Well, we have to take precautions here. Unfortunately, they are very, very severe precautions. They're life-changing, lifestyle-changing precautions, and they're going to be very difficult to do. But when they're done, we'll all be better off for it. And when they're done, we're going to have people that are back are still being employed. Instead of standing around wondering now what are they going to do, because the fossil fuel industry is going and there's nothing else to take its place. So the options are very, very clear. We either do something now, get ready and get people working during the intermission time, or we just wait and see and let it happen and all suffer. And as I say, I just have a hard time understanding people that can't understand that.
The Site C Dam on the Peace River, is it needed?
Oh, this is, really and truly, Jim, you've got to give me something happy to talk about sometimes. There isn't anything happy. The Dodgers are losing, the Habs are out of the Stanley Cup. There isn't anything good anymore. But no, this is a thing that makes me wonder about the politics in B.C. I mean, Christie, really, given normal circumstances, would have absolutely nothing going for her. The debt has just skyrocketed during her time. BC Hydro is all but bankrupt now because of the IPP. It just goes on and on and on. And Site C is being built to make power when we don't need it, and we haven't got any customers for it. The only customers we could have would be LNG, and LNG has got no customers in Asia. I mean, the whole thing is madness. But here's the thing that I think is really troublesome, Jim. There is nobody waiting to take over. There's no government in waiting. Horgan has made such a mess of being the leader of the NDP, and I'm afraid the Greens are just not ready. She's just probably going to get in again by default. And oh, dear, I come to the end of my life waiting to have some good news and sort of a soft, peaceful retirement, and things go crazy.
You wanted a Tesla in the driveway, right?
That's right. That's
Me
exactly
too.
right. If only I was allowed to drive still.
We'll have more with Rafe Mair right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Unbelievable harmony, spectacular performance, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel. Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band coming to West Vancouver Friday, May 6th at the K-Meek Center. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rafe Mair. Rafe, do you have any confidence in this investigation into Lower Mainland real estate right now?
No, I don't, Jim. And the reason, really, I'm pretty cynical about it is that this is raw capitalism at work. And I'm not in favor of raw capitalism. I think there should have been restraints on this a long, long time ago to prevent this happening, but there weren't. And I don't know how you stop it now. Now, a lot of people blame things like free trade and so on. The thing that you've got to blame is the thing that's probably in your lap right now as it is in mine, your computer. It's just so easy to transfer money without anybody knowing that it's gone or being able to do anything about it. I don't know how you stop it. And we talked about this before. I remember so well, and you would too, I'm sure, back in the 80s when we were begging the Chinese to bring money into British Columbia and spend it everywhere they could. We made it easy for them to come in and through immigration, and the special people came in with $250,000, that sort of thing. Now all of a sudden we've got in a panic. Now maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when people like Barbara Yaffe and so on were writing about this first, maybe then the provincial government could have stepped in and done something. But I find it very, very hard to believe they can do it now. I think we're very close to the bubble bursting, which they always do. Things that go up always come down. And so it's going to be too late anyway. But I don't pretend to be an economist or a mathematician, but my gut tells me they're not going to be able to do much of anything. Probably they're going to find a few bad real estate guys for doing, the things that they're doing. But I don't see how they're going to stop it generally.
Well, I just thought it interesting that one single newspaper reporter can dig up this stuff, a story every week about some real estate agency that's doing questionable things, and yet the government hasn't been able to do this ever.
No. Well, I think you have to look at this in a practical sense, Jim. If our houses are that expensive, they're only that because somebody has the money to buy them. Now, unfortunately, the people we want to be able to go into houses can't. The people that are just ordinary, everyday Joes and Janes that have got jobs and want to buy a house like we did and our parents did, they can't afford it. But there are people around that can. So you put some kind of limitation on it. It just turns out to be cash in the kitchen under the table, and it's nothing really changes. And maybe I'm just cynical. I just don't understand how it can change. I'd be delighted to think that somebody could, but even if you could change it, I don't know how you could roll it back so that houses would ever become affordable for young people again. The only way I suppose you could do that would be to open up a lot of land and put a lot of cheaper houses up, and of course the agricultural considerations come in there too. I think it's just hopeless. But then again, you should get somebody who's an expert on these sort of things, but my gut tells me this ain't going to happen.
Well, I saw a headline on the weekend that said Vancouver millennials moving to more affordable homes in the suburbs. And I said, I came here in 1982 and people were doing that then. How is that anything new?
Well, it's just, I think there's another factor here we have to understand, and that's that Vancouver is a very, very desirable place to live from all over the world now. A lot of people are going to be moving here anyway, even if we didn't have this crisis of laundered money and huge sums and all the rest of it. The prices of houses anywhere near downtown Vancouver were bound to get out of sight, just like they are in big cities all over the world and desirable cities. So that's always a problem. It's going to happen. And where we're going to go and how people are going to get transportation from the outer areas into the city of Vancouver, well, that's something that a challenge we haven't met.
Rafe, what about your ongoing dispute with the Green Party, or is there one?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'd like to try to explain that if I could a little bit. I find myself naturally a supporter of the Green Party. I think Elizabeth May is just about the most classy politician we have in this country, including brains and all the rest of it. So I'm very much for them. But I'm an environmentalist. And when I find that the local Green Party is in favor of IPPs, the independent power producers, making double the money they're supposed to be making, absolutely slaughtering the rivers that they're in, just as was predicted, and with the salmon runs going, the rivers being all screwed up, and at the same time bankrupting BC Hydro, and I see that they're in favor of it. Well, how on earth could I possibly support that? And I got into a bit of a dust-up with the leader, Dr. Weaver, on this, and I haven't had any answer that's satisfactory, so I can't move now. Why should he worry about satisfying Rafe Mair? I mean, I can't say that he should be. All I'm saying, you asked me personally the question, I'm telling you that I can't support a party that is not a real environmental party, and any party that favors ruining rivers and overpaying large international companies like General Electric and bankrupting the large power company that WAC Bennett left us with. Anybody that does that, I simply can't support. That's all there is to it.
Rafe, anything else buzzing inside your bonnet today?
No, I think that once I get my computer back, I'll feel a little better. I don't know what other people have gone through what I've gone through, but I've gone through 5 days now without being able to use my computer, and it's been driving me nuts. But once that's done, I'll be a peaceful, quiet, a soft-spoken old man again.
And I say to younger people who point to us people with gray hair and perhaps no hair, that what do you know about computers? I said I built one in high school, and I've been using them my whole life. I don't know anything about them except how to sort of physically make them work. When they don't work, I don't know what's the matter with them, and I don't understand the lingo. When my computer guy says go to this, go to that, I said, what do you mean? What's that? What's that? And but in any event, you can't live without them now. Well, it's just like a car. You may not know how it works, but you know how to make it work.
Well, that's hopefully.
Rafe, thank you very much for being with us.
Always my pleasure, Jim, anytime.
My guest has been Rafe Mair, former BC Cabinet Minister. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments or questions for the show can be emailed to info@HowStreet.com. Also check out Rafe's blog on RafeOnline.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.